Quebec nurses temporarily return to work. Major developments in 2 inquiries, the Dryden air crash and the Newfoundland sex scandal, and freedom in the West.
The World Tonight with Mike Anscombe and the Global News Team.
Good evening. Quebec nurses have suspended their illegal week-old strike for 24 hours, and the Bourassa government says it is ready to resume negotiations. However, the truce may be short-lived, as Kathy Linus reports.
Quebec nurses haven't given up their contract fight for higher wages. But reluctantly, they have initiated a 24-hour truce, agreeing to end their strike for at least 1 day of talks. The government says it, too, is willing to try.
The nurses said at the end of the afternoon that they were suspending their illegal strike, so the government's agreed to go back to the table in order to reach a negotiated settlement.
The reprieve could be short-lived. The nurses, as they showed in the evening when barred from entering a political rally, are still feeling militant, warning they'll go back on the lines if no progress is made over the next 24 hours. Nurses have been providing essential service during the strike. Now, if only briefly, full care will return. This patient welcomes the news, although she has no complaints.
Because they haven't won their point yet. But the service here is good, so I don't see what tomorrow will give us more than we have now.
The dropping of the pickets is encouraging to hospitals, but they realize it's not yet time for a return to normal.
All the nurses will be present tomorrow at the hospital. So basically, we won't be able to raise the occupancy rate of the hospital because it's only 24 hours. But we're very happy about it.
In response to the union's gesture of conciliation, the province has also made a concession. It's agreed for the time being to suspend legal proceedings against the 3 union leaders charged with contempt of court. Kathy Linus, Global News, Hull.
The inquiry into the crash last March of an Air Ontario jet near Dryden resumed today with some emotional testimony from Sonia Hartwick. She is the only member of the crew to survive. Sean Mallon reports now from Thunder Bay.
Sonia Hartwick has not flown since the day of the crash. She is still an employee of Air Ontario, but is on medical leave. As she began her testimony on the events leading up to the disaster, Hartwick was barely able to keep her emotions in check.
24 people lost their lives that day, and 45 survived. I'm here on behalf of these people. I think they have the right to know families of the deceased, the survivors, my co-workers, and the flying public, the events of the week that led up to this tragic event on March 10th, in hopes to prevent a disaster like this happening in the future.
Hartwick had been working on the Thunder Bay, Dryden, Winnipeg run all week on the jet that crashed and its sister aircraft. She told the inquiry it was a week filled with small, niggling problems. The doomed jet was missing 3 oxygen masks, and on several occasions there was some smoke in the cabin on takeoff. By Friday, the day of the accident, pilot George Morwood was growing tired of the delays in clearing up the problems.
He said, "Oh God, more snags." He was frustrated, things that weren't being fixed.
Hartwick described the last minutes before takeoff from Dryden. It was snowing heavily, and she noticed a buildup of fluffy snow on the wing. She said she was surprised and concerned that the aircraft was not de-iced.
I was thinking of that Gander incident about possibility of ice on the wings, and that just worried me, seeing that wet, fluffy snow on the wings.
The Gander incident was a 1986 crash for which wing icing has been blamed. She watched the wings on takeoff and said the snow turned to ice. The plane hit the trees and went down.
I heard explosions and people crying and screaming and yelling for help.
Hartwick also criticized her early training at Air Ontario, saying it focused more on personal grooming than emergency procedures. Some unnamed survivors have approached the commission, asking whether they're protected from reprisals from employers as a result of their testimony. In opening this week,